So I just got done rewatching Masters of the Universe, otherwise known as the He-Man movie from 1987, produced by Canon Films. And look, I've reviewed this movie in the past. Not gonna lie to you guys. Back when I had my old channel, and I didn't really delve into this movie that much. I kind of just put out that review for no reason. I think just because I was really excited for the He-Man movie that's coming out this year, but that review I put out years ago when the movie was announced. So I didn't put much effort into it. This year I want to put a little bit more effort into this review, into this movie, because this is one of my biggest guilty pleasures of all time. If you guys don't know this about me, I'm a 22-year-old massive fan of an 80s cartoon. I freaking love He-Man. Ever since I was a little kid, I used to have the entire series on DVD when I was younger, partly because of my dad, because he grew up in the 80s. And so he passed on a lot of things from the 80s to me, like this, and Thundercats, and Ninja Turtles, and things like that. So, of course, I got brought into it. Then they had the 2003 show, and I just adored that. I love that. So, yeah, and I grew up with this movie because this movie was always around for me, whether it was on DVD or Blu-ray or anything like that. And I will say, for 1987, Canon did the best job that they could. They were wanting this to be a franchise of multi-movies of like two. I think they were planning a sequel already, and it had a release date and everything, because that's just how Canon was in the 80s. And so with this movie, it was supposed to be something really, really big. And it came out, fans didn't like it, critics didn't like it, and so it went nowhere. And like I said, it is one of my biggest guilty pleasures. I don't love this movie by any means, by any stretch of the imagination. I have always said that it's fun, it's enjoyable, for me as a fan. But if you show this to a regular person, like my girlfriend, I did show this to her, and she did not vibe with it. So let's talk about the movie. So this movie starts off with He-Man and our gang, and they're on Eternia, and they get sent to Earth by Orko, and or is it Orko? I don't know. It's this guy doesn't even look like Orko, so who knows? But anyway, they get sent to Earth and they meet Courtney Cox, who's having problems with her family and her boyfriend and things like that. And but then He-Man's there because why not? And it is very early Courtney Cox. Like this was in 1987 before Friends and all that stuff came out. So she was very new to acting, and you can quite literally tell she is very bright-eyed in this movie, very wide-eyed, looking at literally everything that moves. It is very very interesting to watch his performance again. And but then Skeletor follows. There's this MacGuffin kind of plot. It's kind of what you would expect from a He-Man movie from the 80s being made by Canon. I will say one of my favorite aspects of this movie, because this actor I don't love as an actor, as a person I don't hate. That's Dolph Lundgren. He is actually a pretty decent He-Man. He plays a little bit of a bumbling idiot in this movie because they do the fish out of water aspect of He-Man. And that's what the new movie's doing as well. So I guess that's kind of all you can do with He-Man is just make him be a fish out of water, which I am like, okay. But he's good in the movie. I actually really like him as the character. Now the rest of the characters here are very interesting because you have Man at Arms who doesn't really do much, Orko that doesn't really look like Orko. You got Evil Lyn who is hamming it up because of course you would. Your character's name is Evil Lyn. And you got Skeletor in this movie, and he is great. I actually really like Skeletor here. I don't like his design. His design with the makeup, I've never liked it. Him having eyes just looks weird to me. I've never liked the idea of Skeletor having eyes. He used to look like a skeleton, have those black holes in his face. But anyway, he's really good as a character because he is playing he's playing Skeletor from the cartoon. Like there was no other version of Skeletor at this point, whether it be in comics or the 2003 show or anything like that. So he's really going for something more akin to just an 80s cartoon. They don't even try and go for like what the concept was originally based on, which was like Conan but in space. They don't really do that here. They definitely just go for the 80s cartoon cheese aesthetic, and it works for me because I mean I love it. And he's not as gay as other Skeletor was. Still pretty gay, but he's not as gay, and I'm a little disappointed by that because I like my Skeletor to be gay, and it looks like the new movie's version of Skeletor does not look gay, and that makes me very sad. But beside the point, I did really enjoy his performance here, and I feel like as long as He-Man and Skeletor work in the movie, then you have an okay movie. You have a decent He-Man movie. And like I said, the human plotline's ridiculous because it's like, oh, He-Man, but he's in that small town and he's walking around with a giant sword on his back and oh no, shenanigans. And it's like, okay. Luckily, they don't do the shenanigans much here. Actually, upon rewatch, I was expecting them to do it more often, but they spend like the first half of the movie on Eternia, the last half on Eternia. It's just for this middle chunk of the movie, they're just on Earth, and it's just very, very disappointing as a fan of He-Man. But it still does the job. It still works. But something I really did enjoy about the movie also was the effects. Granted, it is canon effects, but there's a bit of a charm to that for me because I grew up on canon movies like this and Cobra for some reason. Um, but I really enjoy the look of canon movies I always have, and this movie definitely has that look. Like it looks very cheap, very low budget, but that's kind of its charm to it, and that's one thing I really enjoy about the movie. And by the time you get to the end of this and He-Man's on his knees, shirtless in front of Skeletor, look, they're never beating the allegations, even in film format. And everything's just happening, and Skeletor is wanting to become a god, essentially, and is covered in gold. And I actually really think that look is kind of goofy, but it does look fun. But then He-Man gets back the sword, he gets back the power, and he becomes He-Man yet again, and it's hype. It's really fun. And yeah, like you can clearly tell they really wanted to see more. They really wanted this to be a franchise because this was canon on their last leg. They had nothing else prepared after this. They were done after this movie, essentially. And so it just kind of it feels like it's just setting up for sequel bait. And by the time you get to the ending credits, which this movie has one of the first post-credit scenes, by the way, of Skeletor coming out of the water after he's been defeated, being like, "I will return." It's ridiculous. It's stupid, but I like it a lot. Look, this movie's not perfect. It never has been. It never will be. Like, this is not a perfect He-Man adaptation, but as it is for nostalgia purposes, and the fact that I grew up with this movie, I grew up with He-Man. I am one of the few 20-something-year-olds who really enjoy He-Man and who have a big sense of nostalgia for the franchise. Yeah, there's no way I can hate this. I don't enjoy this movie, but it is a guilty pleasure for me. And there are some genuinely good aspects about it, like genuinely. It's just some of the costume design as well, especially for Man Beast, and oh my God, it's not great. So anyway, I will give Masters of the Universe 1987 about a 6.5 out of 10, a genuine 6.5 out of 10, just for nostalgia purposes.